So Zuckerberg recently went on the Joe Rogan podcast and he revealed something that was quite interesting. I mean, honestly, it was something that we already knew, but just to get that confirmation, because of course mainstream media tries to lie to us constantly about stuff like this, just to get that confirmation, I think is big. For someone in his position to come out and just flat out say the truth, I think that's important. I think that's very, very important, and it's one of the benefits of us winning this past election. As you see, a lot of different things are falling into place, right? Including, how about them Buckeyes, baby? How about them Buckeyes? OH, baby, OH. I had to brag a little bit, just a little bit, okay, just a touch, all right. Anyway, I want to play this clip of what Mark Zuckerberg had to say on a Joe Rogan podcast, and it's not too shocking, but I'm happy that he said it out loud. Let's dive in.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and scream at them and curse, and it's like these documents it's all kind of out there.
Oh, did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. the emails are published. It's all kind of out there, and they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous. They want us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years from now or something, you're going to see an ad that says, okay, if you took a COVID vaccine, you're eligible for, for this kind of payment, this sort of class action lawsuit type meme. And they're like, no, you have to take that down. And we just said, no, we're not going to take down humor and satire. We're not going to take down things that are true. And then at some point, I guess, I don't know, it flipped a bit. I mean, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. And I don't know, then all these different agencies and branches of government basically just started investigating, coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Wow.
So at the beginning, it kind of seemed like, okay, we should give a little bit of deference to the government and the health authorities on how we should play this. But when it went from, 2 weeks to flatten the curve to, in the beginning, it was like, okay, there aren't enough masks. Masks aren't that important. To then it's like, oh no, you have to wear a mask. And, everything was shifting around. It just became very difficult to kind of follow. And this really hit the most extreme, I'd say, it was during the Biden administration when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program. And I'm generally pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance, the vaccines are more positive than negative. But I think that while they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who is basically arguing against it. And they pushed us super hard to take down things that were honestly were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. We're clearly not going to do that. I mean, that is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that
it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration.
Yeah, I want to know who specifically, what specific individual was contacting Meta, Facebook, to take down or censor some of this stuff. That's what I want to know. Who specifically was making that phone call? But as I was saying, that's not very shocking, right? I'm not surprised, considering who these folks are, who always talk about, they love people having freedom. They actually hate freedom. They really do, especially if it's going against them. If you don't believe me, just take it from their own mouths.
All of these social media companies and these online platforms, which are so powerful in their ability to impact perception about an issue and to influence behaviors. Let's be clear about that. There have to be standards, and he and his account should be taken down. We saw in El Paso that shooter in his manifesto was informed by how Donald Trump uses that platform. And this is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site. It is a matter of safety and corporate accountability.
Thank you. Senator Warren, you can respond.
So, look, I don't just want to push Donald Trump off Twitter. I want to push him out of the White House. That's our job.
Join me in saying that his Twitter account should be shut down.
Let's figure out why it is that
he has lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation, and that has to stop. Donald Trump has 65 million followers on Twitter, and we have to take seriously the weaponization of this platform by the president and the need, therefore, of a private corporation to be held accountable to say he has abused the terms, and it could result literally in a threat to safety of human beings who are participating with the process of justice.
There is not a part of you civically, constitutionally, that is concerned about the precedent of a private company taking the platform away from the President of the United States or some other elected official?
Free speech does not condone or protect threats to the safety of other human beings. And so that is what we are talking about. Like, let's be really clear about what we're talking about.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
I think it's safe to say we dodged a bullet, guys. We dodged a major bullet. You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. They want more censorship, and according to Kamala, oversight. Yeah, because there's no level of oversight currently on what people are allowed to say on social media. And you heard Tim Walz there say there's no free speech protection on misinformation. Interesting, because at one point in time, the laptop was considered misinformation, but people were actually telling the truth. Interesting how that works, but, I guess we don't have to deal with that reality because Uncle Trump won. But I also want to play a little bit more from the Joe Rogan podcast where Mark Zuckerberg was talking about some other stuff. Check it out.
The whole point of social media is basically, giving people the ability to share what they want.
Right.
And it goes back to, our original mission is just give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected.
What do you think started the pathway towards increasing censorship? Because clearly we were going in that direction for the last few years. It seemed like we really found out about it when Elon bought Twitter and we got the Twitter files. And when you came on here and when you were explaining the relationship with FBI, where they were trying to get you to take down certain things that were true and real and certain things they tried to get you to limit the exposure to them. So it's these kind of conversations. Like, when did all that start?
Yeah, well, look, I think going back to the beginning, or like I was saying, I think you start one of these if you care about giving people a voice. I wasn't too deep on our content policies for like the first 10 years of the company. It was just kind of well known across the company that we were trying to give people the ability to share as much as possible. And issues would come up, practical issues, right? So if someone's getting bullied, for example, we deal with that, or we put in place systems to fight bullying.
Right.
If someone is saying, hey, someone's pirating copyrighted content on the service, it's like, okay, we'll build controls to make it so we'll find IP protected content. But it was really in the last 10 years that people started pushing for like ideological based censorship. And I think it was two main events that really triggered this. In 2016, there was the election of President Trump, also coincided with basically Brexit in the EU and sort of the fragmentation of the EU.
And this is why I think a lot of people like Trump. And it's the fact that in 2016, a whole lot changed. And I think a whole lot changed because for the first time, an outsider became the president. Someone who isn't beholden to the establishment became the president. For the first time, the people stood up. Not the first time, 1776. But anyway, for the first time in a long time, the people stood up and gave the establishment the biggest middle finger ever. And they didn't like that. They all had thought, hey, Hillary is just going to walk all over Trump in the election. They thought Hillary was going to beat Trump the way that, my Buckeye Nation beat Oregon and we beat Tennessee. I'm sorry, I had to do it. I had to go there. Sorry for the Tennessee fans and the Oregon fans. Y'all got great teams. You got great teams. But they thought that was going to happen, and it didn't. And so a lot changed in 2016, and now you're hearing it from someone who has some insight on this type of stuff. He knows some of the things that go on behind closed doors that people like me and you don't have a clue about, right? So yeah, confirmation. Trump isn't one of them. We picked the right guy.
And then, in 2020, there was COVID. And I think that those were basically these two events where, for the first time, we just faced this massive, massive institutional pressure to basically start censoring content on ideological grounds. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when it first came up in 2016, did it come under the guise of the Russian collusion hoax?
And this is the thing. At the time, I was really sort of ill-prepared to kind of parse what was going on, right? It's, I think part of my reflection looking back on this is I kind of think in 2016 in the aftermath, I gave too much deference to a lot of folks in the media who were basically saying, okay, there's no way that this guy could have gotten elected except for misinformation. People can't actually believe this stuff, right? It has to be that there's this kind of like massive misinformation out there. Some of it started with the Russia collusion stuff, but it kind of morphed into different things over time.
Well, he was so ideologically polarizing, right? Like people didn't want to believe that anybody looked at him and said, this should be our president.
Yeah, so I took this and just kind of assumed that everyone was acting in good faith. And I said, okay, well, there are concerns about misinformation. We should, just like when people raised other concerns in the past and we try to deal with them, okay, yeah, people if you ask people, no one says that they want misinformation, so maybe there's something that we should do to basically try to address this. But I was really worried from the beginning about basically becoming this sort of decider of what is true in the world, right? That's like kind of a crazy position to be in for billions of people using your service. And so we tried to put in place a system that would deal with it. And early on tried to basically make it so that it was really limited. We were like, all right, we're just going to have the system where there's these third-party fact checkers and they can check the worst of the worst stuff, right? So things that are very clear hoaxes, that there's it's not like we're not parsing speech about whether something is slightly true or slightly false, like Earth is flat, things like that, right? So that was sort of the original intent. We put in place the system and it just sort of veered from there. I think to some degree, it's because some of the people whose job is to do fact checking, a lot of their industry is focused on political fact checking. So they just kind of veered in that direction. We kept on trying to basically get it to be what we had originally intended, which is just, it's not, the point isn't to judge people's opinions. It's to provide this layer to kind of help fact check some of the stuff that seems the most extreme. But it just, it was just never accepted by people broadly. I think people just felt like the fact checkers were too biased. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily even so much in what they ruled, although sometimes I think people would disagree with that. A lot of the time, it was just what types of things they chose to even go and fact check in the first place. So I kind of think after having gone through that whole exercise, it I don't know, it's something out of 1984, one of these books where it's just it really is a slippery slope. And it just got to a point where it's just, okay, this is destroying so much trust, especially in the United States, to have this program. And I guess it was probably about a few years that I really started coming to the conclusion that we were going to need to change something about that.
Yeah, once you open that Pandora's box, it's very difficult to close it. And let me tell you this, if Kamala won, I can almost guarantee that they were going to try their best, their hardest, to ensure that that box was never closed again, and that they would always have a hand over what we were allowed to say. I can almost guarantee it. I mean, we're already seeing some of that stuff, across the pond happening, where you're not allowed to criticize people in a certain way. Like, what? It's crazy. It's wild. So it's already going on in other places on this planet. So it's not super far-fetched for it to happen here. And you just heard it there. They were contacting this guy and his company and telling them, yo, you got to take this stuff down. You got to censor this person. And, the famous, obviously example is Uncle Trump. When they banned Uncle Trump, and everybody, well, not everybody, there were a lot of folks, especially on the left, that were keying and clapping. Ha, 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 ha. Look, gotcha, stupid, gotcha. And I'm like, yo, if they can do that to a sitting president, arguably the most powerful person on this planet, what do you think they're going to do to you? I've literally said this to folks, and they all freeze. They sit there for a moment and like it clicks, like, oh, you're right. And I was right, but because we saw the examples. Once they banned Trump, once they censored Trump, then they started censoring everybody else. Oh, you talking about the laptop? Well, that's misinformation. Banned. Oh, you talking about the beer bug, the COVID? Banned. You talk about the jabs? Banned. Right? Now, of course, there's always been people getting kicked off social media, but not to the extent that it was happening post Trump being banned, which goes to show if they can do that to a sitting president, say, no, we don't want to hear your voice, you're banned, you're gone, they're going to do much worse to you. And it's also the same thing with these court cases, right? Same type of example. If they can drag him into court after court after court on BS, what do you think they're going to try to do to you? And us regular folks, we ain't got $1 billion to back us up. Or millions of dollars in Trump's case, because he technically doesn't have $1 billion. He's worth billions of dollars, but in terms of cash on hand, he doesn't have $1 billion, which is smart. You don't want to have $1 billion just sitting around. Like, that's just a waste. That should be in investments. But anyway, yeah, we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars backing us up to fight these cases. So you're just up shit's creek without a paddle in sight in that case, right? So I think it's important that we're all really careful about, this kind of stuff, cheering on BS crap like the whole Trump situation, which obviously I know none of us are cheering that type of stuff on, but there were a lot of folks on the left that, obviously some people on the left watch my videos. It's important to be careful about cheering that kind of stuff on, because eventually it's going to happen to you. Just saying. But yeah, man, y'all let me know your thoughts and your opinions on this. I think this is quite interesting. Obviously, stuff we already knew, but just getting that confirmation from someone who has the inroads on these, backroom conversations, I think is very, very important in terms of just transparency purposes. And for the people on the left who didn't believe that this type of stuff was happening, when us folks on the right were screaming like, yo, this is completely biased, this is completely out of hand, yada, yada, yada. Well, now we got confirmation from someone who would know, who would be in the know on that kind of stuff. So yeah, man. Thanks for tuning in. Y'all stay safe out there. Peace and love. Go Buckeyes. I'm out.